Okay, so I want to take a couple minutes today while I was doing dailies to talk about why I quit my job at Domino's Pizza. If you guys watched my last video, you know that things weren't going very well. I think I had higher standards for going into that job than they had for themselves. I thought that being a corporate store, they would have done a lot more of what they preach. I feel like they didn't follow a lot of rules they set themselves, and that is kind of what made me not want to be there, because I was a big Domino's fanboy. People would say that I drank too much of the Kool-Aid because I tried to, even when Domino's was wrong, I sided with Domino's. It was so bad. So I got in this corporate environment, and in the first week I had to have a sit down. The first day, I was trying to tell the general manager about some of her expiration dates that were wrong. And then she called me out on I'm making an item wrong, like the way the cheesy bread was supposed to be made. And I'm like, no. She's like, yeah, it's supposed to be the size of a pasta screen. I'm like, before it goes in the oven. And she's like, no, when it comes out. And I'm like, no, it's going to rise. Like, there's going to be 3/4 of an inch on either side. You're talking 1.5 inch difference. Like, no. And she's like, I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't need an explanation on, how dough's made. You don't need to teach me anything. So right then, shut down, right? When clearly there was obviously some flaws she had. And I know I have my flaws. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not talking about being perfect here. Not at all. Not at all. I just like to work as a team to get to an end goal, and we work on each other. Obviously, I have my issues, don't get me wrong. But these were some things that I had noticed that, were blatant, date violations, So she shut me down. I obviously felt I couldn't talk to her anymore. So I didn't bring anything else up after that. This was a Monday. I started on a Monday. I took a phone order on that same day, and the address was in the computer, so I assumed they delivered to it, because that's kind of how Domino systems work. If the address isn't in there, then it's out of your delivery area, right? Well, this address was in there, and she said, we don't deliver there. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And she's like, well, if you didn't know, you should have asked. Okay, I'll go with you on that. Like, valid point. From then on, I started asking, well, here's the problem. This was only my first day. Second day, I'm by myself. And the second day, I'm by myself. I do a fairly busy lunches. It was not very comfortable for one person inside and 3 drivers. I had very, very bad service times. Stuff going in the oven at 20-30 minutes old. And I almost had like little to no help. I mean, there were 2 drivers that knew how to do the oven. I was told the third driver knew how to do the oven, but not well. Well, push come to shove, he didn't even know how to cut a pizza. Didn't know how to cut a pizza. In that, I already kind of talked about training in my last video, but that was one thing that really bothered me, is that, I brought up cross training, and she said, well, cross training wasn't important because they're not in the store long enough. Well, I came from a busier store where we cross trained everybody. And even if they, we're only in the store for 5 minutes, those 5 minutes are precious, and they have to be able to do whatever you need them to do quickly. And if they don't know how to do it, like, it's not going to help, right? So, that was another thing that kind of frustrated me, undertrained people. And then, all they're doing is taking late deliveries, because, there's 3 drivers sitting there watching, one insider put in pizza, at 20-30 minutes old. That's not fair to the customer. And here's the other thing. It wasn't raining. It wasn't snowing. those are usually the only times I accept those busy days. Or if like somebody calls out and you're short staffed by accident. So there was obviously some kind of schedule flaw, and the school kids were, out on vacation, so maybe they didn't know like how busy it was going to be. All right, fine, no big deal. Here's the point. The day before, she had told me if I wasn't sure about an address, I should ask somebody. Well, who do I ask when I'm the only one in the store? I had a customer cuss me out because I told them, I was like, you're not in our delivery area, and they're like, yeah, we've gotten food before. I said, I'm pretty sure you're not in the delivery area. And I'm like looking at the map, and everything I see says, that we don't deliver there. Well, he asked me, he's like, can you ask your boss? I'm like, nah, I am the boss. Like, I'm the only one here. And he's like, wow, that's sad. And he hung up on me, and rightfully so. That was a common problem I saw in the store, was that all the insiders were responsible for answering the phones, but none of them knew the addresses. One common question everybody asks is, do we deliver here? Do we deliver here? Do we deliver here? And where I came from, insiders didn't answer the phone. It was on the drivers to answer the phone. Why? Because they know the delivery area. They know where the food's going, and they're the one that might end up taking it. So when they get an address, they make sure they get the right address, because it might be them that they're screwing, if they don't get the right address. All things I tried to communicate, but because, this GM had 10 years experience, she didn't have anything to learn. I couldn't get through to her. So, at this point, I'm upset. Like, it's my first week at Domino's corporate, and, I already don't want to be there. Right? So this was day 2. I have Wednesday and Thursday off, and I come back to work on Friday. Friday, I open with who I thought was a senior assistant manager. I try to be very careful about what I say. She asks, she says, well, if you have ideas, let us know. It'll help out. And I'm like, no, I try to be careful about what I say. Mainly because, my last franchise that I did work at, I tried to ask the franchisee, I'm like, dude, listen, you're really underpaying your delivery drivers, to the point where it's like illegal. And he didn't believe me. And I was like, yeah, I basically had the evidence, and he fired me 4 days later, because he felt that it was my problem somehow. Like, he told the general manager of that store, he said, he's supposed to be a supervisor. He's supposed to solve problems, not make problems. And I'm like, yeah, well, I was trying to solve a problem. You were underpaying your drivers, and I don't think you want that lawsuit. I mean, Papa John's just lost a $12.5 million lawsuit for underpaying its drivers. I mean, come on, like, seriously? Anyway, whatever. So I'm working with this assistant manager. I try to be very careful about what I say. Around day 2 or 3, Saturday, actually day 2, with her, I get a little bit more comfortable. And I decide to kind of spill a little bit of stuff. But I try to be respectful. I don't talk about it in front of the drivers. It's pretty much just a one-on-one conversation when we have the chance. And I explained to her about, the pizza sauce, and the 8 hours, and that it's, expired, and that they prep too much in the morning, and that they leave it out all day, and then, have to pull it out the next day, and that's a problem. And amongst other things, the cheese, they were dating the cheese for 9 days after they pull it out of the box, which is not correct. It's 4 days, and you're not allowed to exceed the manufacturer's expiration date, which is clearly what was happening. And it was still frozen because they were thawing it improperly. They would have been better off leaving it in the box. But again, can't communicate that because why? Well, this GM has too much experience and doesn't need to be taught anything. Debatable again at this point. So Sunday rolls around, and I explain to the assistant manager, I'm like, I think I'm just gonna ask for a transfer. Like, I don't even want to deal with it. Like, it's not even, there's no way I'm gonna get through and work this out. I was like, I'll try to talk to her first and just say, hey, listen, I don't think this is gonna work, and see if we can work things out. Well, push come to shove, it didn't even get that far. The next morning, Monday morning, I come into work and I'm opening, and all 4 of them show up. My 2 supervisors, the assistant manager and the general manager. And they call me out on the floor, and they're like, I understand you've been having some problems, or you have some issues that, I think we should discuss before moving forward, yada, yada, yada. And push comes to shove, I get written up for undermining because I spoke to an assistant manager about problems I was having with the general manager. Well, fine, okay. That was indeed correct. But because I felt like I couldn't go to them, I thought I was gonna, either just avoid the situation and just transfer to another store and handle it in another way, or have I'm sorry, I really can't do 2 things at once. Or I was going to try to talk to her, but I knew talking really, really wasn't going to get anywhere. So I ended up, I told them about my issues, and, they told me I was right, but I still got written up for, they call it undermining. And it probably was, it kind of was undermining. I don't really know, because I wasn't trying to do it in a bad way. I just was trying to figure out, what was up with this store. It really made me uncomfortable, and it was really breaking me down. So as time goes on, I don't talk about anything anymore, right? I worked the next 2 weeks, and a couple issues that had happened, but I decided that this place really wasn't for me. And I was getting more and more angry about things that were going on in this store. I had a conversation after the light bulb thing about dates on barbecue squeeze bottles or hot sauce squeeze bottles. It's supposed to be 4 days, and she was putting 30 days. And she's like, I'm not changing the date. I'm thinking, why? What? It's not an option. This stuff is not an option. It's set by Domino's, by some test kitchen. I don't come up with this stuff. It's not my rule. It's Domino's rule, and you're supposed to follow it just like I am. Why do you think you are exempt? It just didn't make sense to me. And right then it kind of clicked to me that this is going nowhere. And then she said something about the pizza sauce bottles. She said, did you know you're not allowed to fill the pizza sauce bottles from in-use sauce? And I said, yeah. And she goes, then why have you been refilling them from in-use sauce? And I'm like, I haven't been. And she's like, I'm pretty sure I saw you. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you haven't. Because here's the thing. These pan pizzas have been out for over 2 years. This is what bothers me. Been out for over 2 years, and this GM did not know that was a standard, when clearly they made a 5-minute video, a 5-minute pan pizza training video that everyone was supposed to watch in the company. And I know in the video it tells you not to fill the pizza sauce bottles from in-use sauce because of cornmeal contamination. That was the exact wording in that video. And I knew this because in my old store, we used to make a whole bucket of sauce just for the purpose of filling squeeze bottles. We used to have 12 to 15 pizza sauce bottles, and here this GM had been a GM for, I don't say, she wasn't a GM for 10 years, but, come on, really? How do you not know this stuff? How does your supervisor not notice that, at 12 o'clock, you have 6 pizza sauce bottles out? 6 pizza sauce buckets out, when clearly you're not going to go through that in 8 hours. There's no way. They maybe went through 4 buckets a day. I'll give maybe 5, maybe on a busy day. But I'm talking about on Monday, Tuesday, they probably only go through 4 buckets, maybe 4 buckets. Why are you prepping so much sauce? It just and that was just one thing, and it all adds up. That was the discerning part. Why why can't everyone follow the same standards? Like, and this is a corporate store. That was like the icing on the cake. Like, why do I want to be there? It just seems like another franchise, and I wasn't comfortable. So Thursday morning I woke up, and here's the thing: prep was ridiculous. Over prep, jalapenos, 6 buckets of jalapenos. Like, I mean, in my old store, we maybe went through 1 bucket of jalapenos a day. Like, it just to have 6 buckets of jalapenos prepped is just absurd. So a lot of little things add up and led to my demise. So Thursday, we were going into a snowstorm. I knew it was going to be busy. I just couldn't start my car. Could not start my car. So I tried to, I basically called out of work. And they tried to tell me I couldn't pretty much call out of work. Told me I would have to come in and work the GM shift because she was opening for me, and I wasn't about that because, well, we close at 1 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock by the time cleanup and paperwork's done, and then, I don't get home till 3, and then I got to wake up at 6:30 in the morning to be back at work. Yeah, no, really wasn't feeling that. So, and I was already unhappy, so I, respectfully declined and told them, that it wasn't going to work out and I could no longer work there, and they were upset because I didn't put in my 2 weeks or finish out the week at least. Okay, fine. They rightfully are upset, but I wasn't interested in hearing it. There was a blizzard coming. I knew it was going to be a bigger emphasis on over prep. Not about that either. Basically, I don't know what, there was some kind of threat about the key situation because I told them I would mail them the key because I was an hour and 15 minutes away from the store, and again, couldn't start my car, so I wasn't gonna couldn't drive there. So I told them I'd mail it, and they were like, no, it's got to be at the store by 4 o'clock. I've notified safety and security, and if it's not here by 4, I'm gonna change the locks. And I politely wrote back and said, listen, I'm not a threat to anybody. You can change the locks if you want to. No one's breaking into your store. If you change the locks, it's on you. And then the GM actually ended up texting me about an hour later and said, Chad, please can you mail that key? And I did. I mailed it. I next dayed it. They had it by 12 o'clock the next day. No big deal. So essentially, that is why I quit Domino's. I don't want to work in an environment where, the rules only apply to some people. And here, this store was one of the busiest stores. It was the busiest corporate store that they owned. So it made me feel even worse knowing that, this was the busiest store and they allowed this stuff to happen. What's happening in the slower volume stores where they're like, it doesn't matter. It's not that busy. We don't care. And that's sad. That's sad. So my Domino's career has pretty much come to an end by choice. And I think I'm going to go into IT. I'm going to work on some certifications. I decided I was going to start with A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus. If I'm wrong on that assumption that those are the right things to do, by all means, someone share and tell me what would be the best route to go. Obviously, I know we can't use financial aid on those things, but I also had somebody tell me that the certifications were better than a degree. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I would think so. I mean, the certifications do teach you a lot, and a lot of it's, raw knowledge rather than, if you go and you get a degree in something, you usually have a lot of off courses that don't apply to the topic at hand, and a lot of people get bored, and that's why they don't end up graduating college. So yeah, give me your 2 cents. Tell me what you think. I'm interested to see what other people have to say about the degree. I mean the technology field. Those that are in it. And yeah, I mean, no hard feelings towards Domino's. I just think that, they should have done a better job of, taking care of the people that wanted to be there and wanted to do a good job. That was it. And, here's the whole thing. And all that, with all when I was quitting, no one asked why. No one. Nope. 3 people were included on the conversation, and not a single one of them asked why. And that's kind of disheartening too, because maybe an agreement could have been met, but there wasn't an option there, and that's fine. But if a veteran employee that I hired, for whatever reason, decided that they just weren't going to work one day, and just up and quit, I would ask why. I'd want to know why. It would kind of bother me. Someone who had 12 years of experience with Domino's just decides, I don't want to work at Domino's anymore. Wouldn't you want to know why? I don't know. All right. I'm going to finish trapping these beasts. I tried not to make this a very, very long video, because the last one ended up like half an hour long. All right. So I will, I'll cut this recording off here, edit it, upload it. Like and subscribe. We're 91 subscribers away from our 100 subscriber goal, and that is so I can get a custom URL, which will make it a lot easier for directing people to the site, and we could just grow from there. I'm not quite sure about the division anymore. I watched a couple play videos, and I'm not sure I'm going to be a big fan of it. Seems like a lot of work, and I play WoW too much for that. So, we'll see. All right, I'm going to cut this recording off. You guys have a wonderful day.